I'm assisted. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Okay, first question. I am a sister in Islam who is concerned about watching the complete lecture while the brother is in total view of me. Prevention being better than cure, should I not be lowering my gaze and just listening? For many sisters like to see what the lecture looks like. Please clarify. Okay, it's a good question. Alhamdulillah. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that the believing men and the believing women lower their gaze. So it's not correct, as we know, for brothers and sisters to be looking at each other. And as we know that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Ali that the first gaze, not the first gaze, but the first glance is forgiven. That means the glance, not the, I'm still the first one, still the first one. So just the first glance, you know. However, you know, this is a very good question, inshallah. So the only thing I know about this, and I have not actually come across, I don't know myself until now, of any scholar who actually prohibited the sisters from looking at the people who are giving da'wah, or who are the scholars who are giving lessons. Allahu alam. I mean, I'm sure there are, but I'm just saying I don't know about that. Okay. We know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to talk in front of the women and used to speak to them, but of course that's not a proof that they used to look at him. However, the only thing that I can think of by way of an evidence that might illustrate its permissibility is the narration where Aisha was looking at the Muslim Abyssinians who were doing their display, fighting displays and skills in the mosque, and to the degree that she was resting on the shoulder of the Prophet ﷺ for a long time. She said, so how do you think a young girl, she is looking and wanting to enjoy herself in that regard? So meaning for a long time she looked at it. So this is a type of illustration that if one is looking from a distance, then Allahu Alam, then I know some scholars use this as a proof of that being a permissibility in that regard. That's all I know about that issue. Allahu Alam. Anyway, that reminds me now of a good subject, inshallah, that we could talk about. And that is that this is advice to all the brothers and sisters. Of course, if you do find, if you find that looking at someone, a lecturer or whoever, is a type of fitna for yourself, then you should definitely, as the sister said, Jazakallah khair, prevention is better than cure. It is better to have to, subhanAllah, keep you away from something than fall into something haram, and then, that would be very serious indeed. But I do recommend for the brothers and sisters what the Prophet ﷺ recommended, and that is to get married. The Prophet ﷺ, this is a very serious and important subject, because I know, not only in England, but I've heard especially here, also in Australia, it seems to be a problem. It seems that for some reason people are reluctant to get married and seem to think there may be more important things in life. But marriage is half of the deen. And the Prophet ﷺ said, O young men, marry if you are able, because it helps to lower your gaze and guard the private parts. This, of course, applies equally to the sisters. The Prophet ﷺ advised the shabab, the youth, to get married. This is the advice of the Prophet. Or we could even say this is the order of the Prophet, if you are able. Able does not mean I need 3 cars, 5 houses, nice bank account, and so on and so forth. Ability means that number one, you are sexually able, meaning you are able to perform the act that takes place between a man and a woman. And the second definition of ability is, according to anyway some of the scholars, is that you have a dwelling. You have a dwelling, a place where you can live. It doesn't mean even you have to own it, if you can rent it. If you have those two things, then alhamdulillah, you are able to get married. And then you should obey the command of the Prophet ﷺ in that regard, and you should get married, inshaAllah, if you have that ability to do so. And if you do not have the ability to do so, then you should dedicate yourself to fasting. You should dedicate yourself to fasting. That means you should fast in a manner that is not merely, the normal sort of just in the Ramadan, for example. You should dedicate yourself to it. Meaning fasting should be a solid program, part of your weekly program. At least I would think, Allahu A'lam, depending on the individual, at least I would imagine that you would fast Mondays and Thursdays. Depending on the vigor of the individual, then it might be even good to fast once every other day. I think in Australia you need to fast once every other day. Because in England it's cold, everyone sort of dresses here. You mentioned that the Sahaba radiallahu anhu were constantly worried about committing riyah. Yet people as great as Umar could give charity openly, such as when he announced that he gave half his wealth in charity. How did he attain this ability to rid himself of riyah and do good deeds with sincerity? This is a very good question. You see, first of all, nobody who is sincere thinks they are sincere. In fact, the scholars mention that if you think you are sincere, your sincerity is in need of sincerity. If you think you are sincere, if you think you have ikhlas, then your ikhlas is in need of ikhlas. Because a truly sincere person will never really believe that they have achieved sincerity. They will always be worried that their deed has been affected some way or another way by a riyah or by showing off. This is the condition of the believer. They are always between fear and hope. A believer will never imagine that I am sincere. Unfortunately, you find people saying, I am sincere. If you only saw how sincere I am, subhanAllah, this person is really not sincere. A sincere person never thinks they're sincere. So Umar did not achieve a state where he thought he was sincere. We don't attribute that to him. Rather, there was the condition of the companions that they were always worried about their sincerity, but they never really thought that they had achieved it. However, this brings up a very important issue. You see, if you do a good deed in order to please people and in order to show off to people, that is riyah. But if you leave doing a good deed, meaning there's a good deed that you want to do it, but you stop it because you think, oh, the people might think that I am showing off, then that's also showing off. That's also showing off. For example, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted you to recite the Quran beautifully, and we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the people or those who recite the Quran beautifully, and we should try to recite the Quran beautifully. But if the person makes their recitation less beautiful, because they're thinking, if I make it beautiful, the people will think that I'm showing off, then he's showing off. Because the show off, the person who is committing riyah is the person who does their deed for people, not for Allah. So that's why Umar, it's not relevant whether they gave their charity secretly or they gave it openly. If there is a benefit in giving your charity openly, and that you know that if you give charity openly, you will encourage other people to give charity, and that is your intention, that is a good deed. But if you say, oh, I'm not going to give this charity because the people might think that I'm showing off, then you're a show-off. That is why the Sahaba, in that regards, they did their good deeds. They did the good deeds, whether they were openly or whether they were privately. Whether the deeds were open, public or private, they did the deeds. The aim is to continue doing the deeds, but to make sure that it is directed purely for the sake of Allah. I hope, inshallah, everyone understands that point, because it's an important point. Assalamu alaikum. After hearing about the severity of speaking without knowledge, I am scared to say anything. If someone asks me if something is haram or halal, is it compulsory for me to answer them if I know of an opinion on the topic? What if there is another opinion by another scholar that I am not aware of? Should I keep quiet instead and tell them to ask someone else? Jazakallah khair. No, the condition is, brothers and sisters, if you have a piece of knowledge, then it is not permitted to hide it. Whoever is asked about something of which they have the knowledge and they hide it, then Allah will make them wear a bridle of fire on the Day of Judgment. So if you know something and you are sure and you have a degree or a good degree of certainty, or that your certainty is more than your doubt, that some scholar who is trustworthy has said this or that, then it is sufficient for you to say, as you heard me say, for example, I think it was yesterday or was it even today, subhanAllah, it's all rolling into one thing, that I, for example, quoted Shaykh Uthaymeen. I said, Shaykh Uthaymeen said this and that, and this is what his opinion is, and this is the only thing I know on that topic. So that's enough for you to say that. Or such and such scholar said this, and such scholar said that, and that is what I know from the topic. Or you say Ibn Abbas said this, or Ibn Abbas said that. You know that that is, from Ibn Abbas or from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or you are sure that this verse of the Quran has this meaning, and you are sure from knowledge that it has that meaning, then it is upon you, if someone asks you, to convey it. However, it is something worth pointing out that the Sahaba never liked to give fatwa. If someone asked them for opinion about something, they would always like to refer to somebody else. They would always like to refer to somebody else. They did not rush to give fatwa. It's quite the opposite. They would say, ask someone who they consider to be more knowledgeable. So they would do that. They would rather prefer that someone else was asked the opinion, that they would have to say something and give a fatwa. But if you have the knowledge, and you know that this is from Islam, then you have to speak about it. And you have to say it. It's not permitted for you to hide it. What we are warning against here is, brothers and sisters, people just advancing their opinions, speculating and guessing and thinking that this is something permissible, to talk about Allah and His deen and to give fatwa even though you are not qualified to give fatwa. You have not reached the level of being someone who is capable of making his jihad, and you go around making fatwa saying this is halal and this is haram, and you don't have any capability of doing that. Allah did not give you the means to do that. This is speaking about Allah and His deen without knowledge. Do you think not wearing the niqab is a sin? What about the hijab? Jazakallah khair. Okay. There are two opinions amongst the scholars, the trustworthy scholars, that is. And the two opinions are that wearing niqab is wajib, and the other opinion is that wearing niqab is mustahab, recommended. As for those people who say niqab is an Arab custom, or it's copied from the Byzantines, it's nothing to do with Islam, then those people are people who speak about Allah and His deen without knowledge, and they are lying about Allah and His religion. That is not true. The niqab is something that was worn in the time of the Prophet ﷺ by the women. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about it. The female companions, including the mothers of the believers, they used to cover their faces. In fact, it was narrated from Aisha that we used to walk on the street, and when the strange men came by, we would draw our jilbabs over our faces, so only we would look through one eye. So it is known that the female companions, including the mothers of the believers, they used to cover their faces in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The only issue which the ulama differed about is whether it is obligatory for the woman to cover herself completely and to show nothing, not even her face, not her hands, or whether she is permitted to show her face and hands. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all the evidences and who says this and who